So I picked up these gouache paints at the Muddle, which is down the Dargle. It's in the Egan Centre down there. And they are liquid gouache, and they're €24, which is quite reasonable really for what you get in the box. Come nice and packaged in this box. So a sticker. So the selection of colours is pretty cool. They have middle green, scarlet, magenta, emerald green, cayenne, titanium white, carbon black, Parisian blue, lemon yellow, ochre, sienna and yellow. So it's a pretty good mix of colours, and the tubs are pretty big too. I'm not sure exactly, 50 milligrams of paint. So my experience with gouache for the most part is with pans, so I'm just interested to see how these liquid gouache compare to that. For the most part, you nearly need to always shake liquid gouache before you use it. So there's a good selection of colours and a good basis to mix any colour you pretty much want. So I'm going to give these a go. So I'm going to start with the yellow, give it a shake. Gouache by nature is kind of a dense, kind of opaque paint, the opposite to watercolour. Watercolours will be generally known for their transparency, whereas gouache are known for the kind of density and the intensity of their colours. They also, for the most part, dry opaque, so you kind of use them for projects that you don't want the paint to come through the pencil or the pen that you've used. So they're quite liquidy, as you can see. They probably need a bit of a stir. So they're similar to the consistency of a poster paint, but I think more opaque. So poster paints would kind of be somewhere in between a watercolour and a gouache paint. This is the first time I've given them a go, so we'll see how it goes. So they're really rich and they are very opaque, which is really nice. I've used these straight from the tub, so there's no water involved here. Try a little bit of water onto this. So even with water, it maintains its opacity. Nice and rich and very pigmented. Gouache tends to dry up quite quick, so depending on what project you're using, just bear that in mind, especially if you want to blend colours. So that's the yellow. The next colour I'm going to use is kind of a red colour. It's a very vibrant, quite kind of fluorescent red. I'm deliberately going to use it while the yellow is still wet because I want to create kind of a bit of an orange, just to see how they mix. So again, they're quite watery. You need to kind of mix them up a bit. Again, using straight from the tub. I may have left the yellow too long for it to mix, but you can see how fast the yellow dries, or these dry in general. Getting a little bit of a mix there. But yeah, for the most part, they just dry very quickly, so you need to kind of mix them off the page. I wouldn't be relying on mixing them on the page. Really nice, really dense and really vibrant. I'm going to back in with some yellow while the red is still wet, just to see how they are for mixing. Yeah, so they mix really nice and kind of creamy. So what I've learned so far is when you want to mix your gouache, don't rely on mixing them on your page. I'd say mix them separately and apply them to the page because they dry very fast. Now this is actually a watercolour paper, so it would also help the fact that it would make it dry quicker because it's grey absorbent. But I could imagine even on ordinary art or cartridge paper that they dry pretty quick too. That's the yellow and the red. So here I've mixed yellow and red off the page, and you can see I get a much more defined orange. This is the orange I mixed while it was on the page, but it's much more defined when you mix it off the page. So they can be used with quite a bit of water, but you do still maintain the opacity, which is really nice. So I've used this quite watery, but I'm still getting a very dense, strong pigment on the page, even with a good bit of water. So now I'm going to try the magenta. Again, I'm going to mix it, not mix it, I'm going to give it a good shake. So they're similar to the consistency of poster paints, but maybe a little bit more watery, but definitely more opaque and more pigmented. So let's try this straight onto the page. Oh, it's lovely, it's really rich. Slightly less opaque. Could be to do with the fact that I haven't really mixed it. I might try mix it and see. So yeah, it's a bit more opaque when you mix it. So it's important to mix these liquid gouache before you use them, either in a separate palette or straight into the tub. It's lovely, it's really bright. Again, really pigmented. Gouache is really versatile. It's used quite a lot in art classes. A lot of the time they'll be used in a pan form, which is a hardened like little cake of gouache. So it's not that easy to get these liquid gouaches. So as I said, I got these in the muddle down in Bray, and they are €24 for the pack of 12. Really good variety of colours, so it's good value, and because it's so dense and because it's so opaque, they're going to last a long time. So the next colour is yellow ochre. I've given it a shake and a stir. I'm going to use it directly on the page. So here we go. Yep. Again, nice and dense. Slightly less opaque, but still very opaque, but maybe slightly less than some of the other colours. So you can see they very much stay separate. So you can see that I've gone through over the pink here, and you can see that the pink has stayed solid. They don't mix. So once they're dry, they don't remix once they've been wet by another colour on top. So the way a watercolour would, if you added a colour on top, you'd sometimes kind of make the other colour activate again. But in this instance, with these liquid gouaches, that doesn't seem to be the case. So I'd say it would be very good paint to use for sort of cellular painting. So maybe you draw your picture and fill in sections of your picture. Definitely would recommend to mix them off the page though, if you want varied colours. So that's the yellow ochre. So these are all pretty much the warm colours. I wanted to stick with this scarlet for the moment, and I want to show you that you can use your gouache paints as a wash. So a good bit of water on your brush, and you can see they become less opaque, but they make a really nice wash. So you still get kind of very vivid colours, but it's slightly less opaque. Lots of colour, lots of water, and again you kind of need to move fast or use a fatter brush. Come almost kind of like watercolours when you use them as a wash. I'm gonna get a fatter brush. So you can see I haven't used much water here. Add some water, it becomes more of a wash. and more similar to the texture of a watercolor. I would think the main difference between this and a watercolor would be the fact that they're opaque, and the fact even when they're watered down as a wash, they maintain a very vivid color, where watercolors kind of lose a bit of their vividness when you wash them down to make a wash. So yeah, as an overall, I think they're really versatile. Absolutely would recommend them. They are good value because they're going to last a long time. They're going to go very far because they're so pigmented. Yeah, definitely would recommend those. I'll just give you another look at the front of the box. So they are Studio Gouache set 12 by 50mm, and they are from by the dailyart.eu, but they're available in the Muddle down in the Vegan Centre in the Dargle. Highly recommend them. So I'm going to test the black. This is called Carbon Black, and black is usually a good way to test how opaque something is, because you need good opacity with black. So let's just see how this goes. So I'm going to start by giving it a good mix. Again, I think they all could do a shake and a mix before you start. Going to do a little bit straight out of the tub, and then I'll see how it is with no water. So let's start here. So yeah, it's nice and really dark, really opaque. You can see why it's called carbon, because it's literally black as carbon. So that's it with no water. Really strong and really opaque. So I'm going to add a little bit of water now to it to try and loosen it up. Without the water, it's quite thick, almost tacky to the page. So you want to get a nice flow, you definitely need to add water, depending on what your project is. Some projects will require you to have it flowing. Some of it will require for it to be sort of stiff and more solid on the page. But it looks like either way, whether I have it straight out of the tub or watered, it looks like it's very opaque either way, which is a really good sign. So it's going to be very versatile. I think I might just so yeah, very dark, very versatile. I'm going to try a skinnier brush, and I'm going to try it quite wet, just to see if I can get a slightly different. Yep. So you can see, even with quite a bit of water, it definitely maintains its opacity. Really good for doing any sort of silhouette work like this. So you get kind of a very dense colour. Again, like the other colours, it dries very quick on the page. It's nearly drying as I'm painting. It doesn't really leave a huge amount of margin for error or to correct, so you just need to bear that in mind. This is straight out of the tub. It's very dense, almost too dense. I think I prefer black with some water in it. It's a little bit easier to use when there's more water in it. The black so far seems to be the kind of thickest, which is kind of what you want, I suppose. This and the white. So it's literally drying as I'm painting. So as with all sets of paint, you tend to use the white and the black a lot quicker than you use the other colours. So it's good that this black is kind of dense and vibrant because you get plenty of time out of it. So like with most paints, the colours I probably used quite a lot and probably the most are the blacks and the whites. So this is good that this is kind of nice and opaque and goes quite far. So just they also do in the same brand down in the Muddle, the acrylic paints, and I've used some of them, and a bit like this, they're really good quality, really rich and quite creamy. Like obviously acrylics are different to gouache, so they come in big tubs like this, or longer tubs. They're about €10, which is pretty good value because you use a lot of white and black. So the acrylic down in the Muddle is pretty cool too. Decoupage Girl has a table down there, and she supplies all of these lovely paints to the Muddle at a very reasonable cost. So that's the black. So the last colour I'm going to use from this set is the titanium white. And as I said before, a bit like the black, the white is very important, as is the black in your sets of paint, because they're used the most frequently, and they both influence your other colours and the way you mix other colours greatly, whether you're shading or tinting. So I'm going to go in with a little skinny brush with this, straight from the tub. See how it goes. Feels quite a bit more watery than some of the other colours. Just see how it goes. So yeah, it's definitely waterier, should I say. Maybe not quite as opaque as the black. So a bit like the other colours, it's drying pretty quick. You don't get very much time to adjust or alter on the page. So what I might try and do is also make it really watery and try a little bit of splat, see how well it splats. Yeah, so there you get a pretty opaque splat from it. So I'm going to add some more water. So again, a bit like the black, even though I've added plenty of water to this, you still get a very opaque kind of colour. Kind of feature of the of gouache in general. Even it tends to hold its opacity even if it's watered down quite well, or quite a lot.